What is up, everybody? In this video I just wanted to talk about 3 very interesting characters to me. One of them is from a show, the other one is from manga, and the other one is from a video game. 3 of these characters that I feel like are either bad guys trying to do good or a good guy trying to do something bad. They all kind of follow something similar to that. Not necessarily white and black, Spider-Man being a good guy. This guy's obviously a bad guy, more so in the gray area, maybe dark gray or light gray kind of area. All 3 of these characters have very interesting arcs, very interesting development over their media. And I just wanted to talk about all 3 of them individually. First, I'm going to go over Walter Hartwell White. This man, well, first let's talk about, who he was as a character, his personality, what happened, who he is first before the change. Because all these characters change and do different things. We're just going to talk about who he was before. Walter seemed like a kind, caring, very prideful family man. He was pretty poor, and he's a chemistry teacher. The guy already didn't have too much to his name, and his family was struggling. He needed money. His wife was pregnant.
Oh! Listen, that is just not going to work for me. I'm not interested in that at all. And I would appreciate it if you don't call me.
Yo, Mr. White, I can't.
Damn, they're so annoying, those people.
Yeah? Okay.
And he needed money really badly. So badly that he was willing to turn to making that blue rock candy. You know what I'm talking about. The man was willing to use other people too. I don't think he definitely didn't want Jesse to unalive in any way. He still cared and tried to protect Jesse as well. But the reason he started to do these things, which began the change, began the science of chemistry, as he says, was for his family. He started doing it because of his family, because he needed the money to provide for his family. He didn't, even though Walter was already a prideful guy from the start. Even at the beginning, he was already prideful. He didn't want to take their money, Gretchen's money. He was a very prideful guy from the start, so I get it twisted. He didn't just grow a pride. He became a lot more confident, but he did have some sense of pride towards the beginning. And later in the show, he slowly but surely, the man just starts to cross or get close to the border, the line that you shouldn't cross. Sometimes the guy even steps over it by unaliving, because towards the end of the show, what he's like at the end, he's unaliving people. He's doing disgusting acts, like what he did to that kid, man. Freaking poisoned him. He poisoned that boy, which is just, that's diabolical. No matter which way or how you put it, it's diabolical. I'm not gonna say he was as cold as Gustavo, because even when everything was falling apart, he still did care about his family. He was willing to give everything up for Hank. He even made it sound, when Skylar called him, he made it sound like it was all his fault and not hers, even though she was in on it. He did still have a heart. And would I say Walter is a good guy doing bad things or a bad guy doing good things? I think in the beginning, Walter is more so a good guy who's doing bad things, but gets corrupted, lets the power go to his head, the pride, everything just go to this man's head afterwards. What he did to Mike too. Come on, man. Why'd you do that to him? But everything just getting to Walter's head later did, I would say, make him a bad guy. He wasn't a good guy. Yeah, I'd say he was more a bad guy at that point. But what makes Walter interesting is that I wouldn't say he was just black and white. Oh, he's just instantly bad, he's instantly good. I think there's always like a gray area when talking about all of these characters even. There's just a big gray area when talking about them, because there's so much that happens to these characters, you know. None of their actions are justified, none of them, but you can understand why. Even though their behavior isn't justified, you can understand why. You can see their goals, you can see what they're trying to do and how it changes them over time. You know, you can see it with Walter especially. Because as Walter said at the very beginning, chemistry, he wouldn't say is the science of chemicals. It's more so the science of change. And Walter does just that. To me, at least. You can, you know, perceive it in whatever way you want. But to me, at least, I think Walter did change in a way. Or at least show more, you know, of his true self, maybe. Kind of, maybe like Dutch. You know, maybe that. But we're jumping the gun a little bit when talking about him. We'll get to Red Dead soon. But before Red Dead, we're going to talk about Guts from Berserk. Guts, unlike Walter, had a terrible upbringing. His parents were unalived, and he was raised by two people, but the lady passed away, and Gambino was the sole person who raised Guts, his adoptive father, I guess you would say, and this man was just diabolical to him. The stuff that he put him through, especially with Donovan as well, it was bad, and towards the beginning, Guts wasn't even really his own person. He was just doing everything for Gambino. But then, you know, after he found everything out, he did take care. He handled business, I guess we'll say. He handled his business. He handled what he had to do. Then after that, before he joins, you know, that gang with Griffith and all that, I guess he was doing his own thing, but when he did, him as a person before was just a kind of people pleaser, it seemed like, especially for Gambino. And then when he joined, he did start to want to please, I guess, people please, especially Griffith. And he did have a liking for, you know, that gang, even though it was kind of like a rough start, I guess. Guts. Now, also, Guts, I wouldn't say, towards the beginning, he was more so influenced, kind of. He didn't know any better. He was just doing what he was told, and then after that, I think after he turned like a certain age, after he turned a certain age when he was a bit older, not a full adult yet, he was still kind of skinny, but after a certain age, I think he did know better. He was like on his own for a minute, and he did join up with, you know, Griffith's crew, and all that bull happened as well, where Griffith then betrayed them with the Baylid and all that bull. And before that was the Black Dragon arc, where we actually see, well, technically the Black Dragon arc is after all that stuff with Griffith, but it happens before, and he's kind of cold as well. He's really cold. I think Guts is putting on this facade at first. It seems like he's trying to act really cold and act like he doesn't care, but I think he does somewhat care. You know, he's not Mr. Compassionate, but he does somewhat care. He's not just completely devoid of anything, especially when he was with Griffith's crew in that whole arc. You know, when he did do terrible things, especially to that guy's son, on accident, he was pretty torn up about it. He wasn't completely cold and devoid of everything, but he does change over the course of Berserk. He does change a lot. He is pretty edgy. Towards the beginning, the dude is pretty edgy, but towards the end, I feel like he's a lot more chill, a lot more calm, even more patient with people. Because at first, it seems like he doesn't even want to deal with Puck. And later, it's like, yo, Puck, I think he does actually like Puck. He likes all of these people, you know, even though what happened to his first family, which was just diabolical. His new family, kind of, he does like them, and he also has the Beast of Darkness, which is just, he fights with that constantly. The man is always fighting. There's one thing later in his life. He's always, no, actually, his entire life, he's always fighting. And not just later, he's always fighting. It just, especially it gets worse with the brand on his neck or whatever. It just gets so much worse, but Guts also does change. I feel like, yeah, he does. Towards the beginning, all he does is just want to get revenge. But I think later, as the story goes on, he finds things that is just more important to him, like Casca and getting her better and stuff like that. Just over the course of everything, it just changes the way he sees everything. I still think he does want to get revenge on Griffith eventually, but there are more important things to Guts, you know, than just getting revenge and being just a killer, you know. There's more to it than just that to him. And he does become less edgy as it all goes on. And to say Guts is a good guy doing bad things, or like a bad guy doing good things, or just a bad guy doing bad, I wouldn't say Guts is necessarily doing bad. He has done bad. I wouldn't say he's like a bad guy or a good guy. I think he's kind of in the middle when it comes to that. He does save people, but sometimes he is just what is going on here, man? What are you doing? You could be a bit more compassionate sometimes, but when he matures a bit more, especially towards the later arcs, I would say Guts is trying to do good. I would say he is. And I wouldn't say he's a bad guy doing good or a good guy doing bad. Guts is just a really gray, neutral character to me. I think what matters most to him, obviously, is his family more than anything else. That's the most important, making sure they're safe, especially Casca and everybody. That's probably the most important, which is just very different than how he was in, you know, the Black Swordsman arc, where he doesn't care about nobody else except for himself. Even though there are certain glimpses where he is like, kind of like, dang, that's kind of messed up. I shouldn't be like this. Why am I like this, kind of? But I do think he does change a lot over the course of Berserk. And after Guts is Arthur Morgan from Red Dead Redemption.
I guess I'm afraid.
There is nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Morgan. Take a gamble that love exists and do a loving act.
All aboard? I shall try.
I know you will.
Arthur Morgan, my boy from Red Dead Redemption, my son. Arthur, before everything, I remember Arthur did have a son, Isaac, and with a waitress named Eliza, and they obviously, you know, that's pretty bad, you know, what happened to them, but I remember he also had another girl, and Arthur is, at the start of Red Dead at least, you know, not like canonically when he was first born, but at the start of Red Dead 2, you know, when you first play as him and stuff, Arthur is a bit cold. You know, he is kind of just looking out for, he wasn't just, you know, gonna go unalive a bunch of people willy-nilly and, you know, innocent folk, but he was kind of a cold person, just kind of doing stuff for Dutch, his gang or whatever. He was just doing what benefited them the most. And he even did the stuff for Strauss, all that bull, which is just jacked up, man. And over the course of the whole game, Arthur reflects on certain actions that he's done. Certain people that he's affected. And he even knows he's not a good man. He knows he's not a good guy. He's not a decent man. Even though it is arguable, towards, maybe most of his life, but at least towards the end of his life, if you're high on Arthur and not low on her, if you have high on her, Arthur is a good dude. He spares people. He is a good dude, trying to help a lot of people with Charlotte, talking to the nun and Brother Darkins and stuff like that. He is a good guy. I'd say he was. He just, certain things he does are necessarily, he's not Superman, obviously. He still does do rob people and all this stuff, but I don't think he's just doing bad things to innocent folk who are just out here trying to live. Most of the time, at least. If they get in the way and they're just hey, you gotta move, he's not gonna do anything terrible to them, but he is gonna kind of be get out the way. But Arthur also got tuberculosis in the game, and when he comes to grips or comes to terms with his mortality and all that, as time goes on, it kind of helps him realize how he affects people and what he can do for people in his life, what time he has left, at least, especially for John and Jack and them. He sacrificed everything for them because of his mortality, the way he saw it. I don't think, to me at least, I don't think Arthur would, the tuberculosis did change him quite a bit. He went from a cold guy to this guy is trying to help as many people as he can. He's giving families money and stuff like that, trying to help families that he did wrong to. But I wouldn't say that tuberculosis was the only thing that made Arthur think about everything he was doing and change his ways. I think it was more than just that. As well, it was not only that, but Dutch was kind of tripping later, and Micah and all those people. And Arthur said himself, he's not a revenge guy. Revenge doesn't do anything for anybody. It's not about that. Just like if you chose, which I think canonically what he would have chosen is to help John Marston get out of here, get to his family, instead of going after the money and Micah and Dutch. He went after them, or helped John Marston and stuff. He wasn't going to get his revenge on, Micah. He just saw that as, there's no point. There would be no point in that, He's got more important things than money and stuff like that. I think Arthur does change and comes to terms with his mortality as well later. Not only that, but I feel like he changes in the way he views life towards the end, especially. But it is super sad. I feel like all of these are pretty sad, but I feel like Arthur's passing was just, wow, this was pretty sad. It was pretty hard watching Arthur go, man. But to say, was Arthur a good guy or doing bad things, or a bad guy doing good things, or a bad guy, or any four-way you want to put it, if there were something, I wouldn't say he was a neutral like Guts, but if there were a way to put it, at the beginning, I would say Arthur was a bad guy doing bad things. He wasn't completely bad, but he was a bad guy doing bad things at the beginning. And later, Arthur was more of a bad guy trying to redeem himself. Which is funny because that's the name of the game, Red Dead Redemption. It's the name of the game right there. And I would say he is a bad guy, maybe trying to do good. You could make the argument he was a good guy, but I don't know about that. Even he knew he wasn't really a good guy, If we're counting his entire life, maybe if we're just counting what he did towards the end, yeah, he may be a good guy, but his entire life, what he did, I would say he was a pretty bad guy, I'd say. He wasn't decent. I love all three of these characters. You know, they all represent a lot of different things to me. And they all mean, you know, a lot to me, especially because they all had an impact on my life, you know. Even Walter did, man. Even Walter did. As much as that, like, maybe, like, why is this man have... Just seeing how it all played out for him, seeing how Berserk played out, and especially Red Dead Redemption, and what all three of these things mean to me, it means a lot, especially all three of these characters. They've taught me lessons that are they just made an impact on my life in general. But if I were to say which of them is the most good and which of them is the most bad, well, as much as I like Arthur, the man is, you know, I mean, come on now, he's a bandit, he robs people, he's not necessarily a good guy. I think some aspects of him are, like, pretty good, and I love him as a character. Like, don't get me wrong, Arthur's my boy, but, you know, at the end of the day, he unalives a lot of people, okay, like, a lot of people. You know, as much as he says sometimes, hey, killing's the last resort, the dude sometimes does unalive people quite often, even people who are just doing their jobs, like police officers, for example. But I would say probably the worst one here is probably Walter. I think he's towards the end, at least, at the very end, Walter is probably the worst. Then it's probably Arthur, and then it's probably Guts. Even though I think Guts, even then, is a very gray area character. Even then, none of these guys are necessarily good, but I don't think all of them are all bad. You know, I don't think all of them are all bad. But that's going to be it for this video, you guys. Hope you all enjoyed this one. Peace.